So I'm Katia, and I founded the blog JetLaggedLovers. I started it about 3 years ago, and I grew up a competitive athlete, a competitive figure skater, and I started doing social media shortly after, and I became very passionate about it. I became learning more about it and working with different small businesses. I found an interest for it, so I knew that I wanted to start something of my own. And when I first started my blog, I started it as a storybook of my own experiences and inspirations from around the world, and I've just kept doing what I love. So I went to school for international relations. Travel was always a really big part of my life growing up because I would travel for competitions, and my family has always been pretty scattered around the world. So travel was always just like an integrated part of who I am. And going into international relations, I started learning more about how the aspect of multiculturalism and how the world comes together in different industries and different aspects. And I started to look at marketing and fell in love with the industry because I started to see how things were marketed differently in different countries. So if I were to go, for example, to Russia, then the same product could be marketed in a completely different way because they're trying to approach the audience that they're trying to work with. I just became really passionate about marketing, and then I knew that I wanted to start somewhere and somehow. So I started my own social media business, and I started working with small clientele, just asking to manage their Instagram accounts. And it was something as small as that, but that brought me to where I am now and kind of gave me the ability to expand my own platforms. So my family has always been super supportive. I have I would say my family has always been super supportive in everything that I've done. Of course, my mom here and there will question, what are you doing, Kat? Why are you taking pictures all day? Where is this going to take you? But at the end of the day, she'll offer to help me, and she sees my growth and how passionate I am. And I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is that I'm doing something I love and I'm actually working towards it, because at the end of the day, if I'm doing something I love, that's what I'm going to be doing 24/7, and I think that's super important. Being in social media is a very difficult industry to be in because there are a lot of plateaus and a lot of ups and downs, and more downs probably than ups, especially during the first little bit. And it's been a long journey, and when I first started, I had no idea how to grow. I was just putting stuff out there that I loved, and I loved creating. That's just something that I've always loved to do. But as I started to learn more about the tactics and the strategies of how to grow, I think it only empowered me to become more confident in how I approach being in the industry, because obviously you're empowered by a lot of other women who I find as my inspiration. So just being able to see what they do daily has kind of taught me over the years and has given me the ability to be where I am now. So I am a feminist. Feminism to me means empowering other girls, other women, other men, empowering the entire world to be what you want to be. So whoever you are and whatever you do, to be the best at it, you have to be an inspiration to everyone. And to be that inspiration to everyone, you want to place yourself as a role model. Know that everyone's looking up to you. So what would you do in the right intention towards everyone? Not just girls and women, but boys and men. And doing what you do and doing what you love comes with the responsibility of placing yourself as that role model who can empower anybody else to want to be like you. So when I first started my platform, and I think the very first person who reached out to me was a young girl, and she said, wow, you inspire me. Can you please post more? Tell me how I can do this too. And I think that was the initial second in my career, or whatever you want to call it, that I kind of saw myself as, whoa, people are actually looking up to me. What can I do to inspire them more? Or what do I want? What message do I want to transmit to them? And having grown up a competitive athlete, I grew up around a lot of girls, and we would always be a team working towards one goal all together, however, all still in competition, has taught me about being in that competitive environment. And I think it still exists in social media as well, but it's when you stop treating other people in an industry as competition and you start treating them as a unit, that you are working towards something together to make a change as a team. I want to create a team that works towards growing social media as a norm, because there's obviously lots of stigma around the industry and careers associated with it. And I think together as a unit, being able to put out what I love and do what I love and have other people kind of look up to me has given me more motivation and inspiration, which I think is always recycled back. So as much as you give, you're going to get back. When I was younger, I grew up in such a competitive environment in figure skating that we were always hit against each other, and there was no such thing as unity, because I was an individual figure skater, which meant everyone who I was training on the ice with every single day was my biggest competition, and there was always that sense of you wanted to be best friends with them, but including parents and coaches and just the whole environment, you just feel like you're in a constant competition. And I think going into university and becoming part of a varsity team is where I initially came to the realization that competition is all in your head. Yes, it's great, and it teaches discipline, and it teaches you to get to where you are. And I think it's an essential part of life in order to be able to prosper. But it's when you stop thinking of it as a competition and start thinking of your teammates as a team and something that is going to help you, and kind of becoming their role model and empowering them to be and do better, then with that, you're going to become better and do better. Having grown up, I was a competitive figure skater, so I was in an environment where ideal body standards were more than anything else. Like, you had to be a certain height, you had to be a certain type of muscular, you had to be whatever you had to be. There was always some kind of criticism set around it. And as an optimistic person who always tries to stay positive, I never really let that get to me, even though there was all these pressures coming at me. But when I turned about 13 years old, having grown up, I grew up watching Fashion Network, fashion television, every single day of my life. So there was nothing more that I wanted apart from figure skating than being a model. And I remember when I was 14 years old, I had found a modeling school, and I had convinced my parents to let me go there for the summer, where they taught us how to catwalk and do our makeup and everything from like self-defense to taking photos. And I absolutely loved it because I met so many amazing girls there, and a lot of them who became big models now. But after undergoing the school, we had to do a photo shoot, and that's where we got our comp cards made. And on your comp card, you have a photo of yourself, your full body, and you have your height and your eye color, your hair color, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was 5'4" when that kind of became when I created my comp cards, and all the other girls were 5'7", at least 5'8". And being a 14-year-old girl, I became really, really discouraged and really, insecure. I became really insecure with myself because that's all I ever wanted. It was to become a model, and I was getting rejected by agencies telling me that I wasn't tall enough, and then I thought my look wasn't right, and I thought that I was just not pretty enough, and I would go to a lot of model castings and get rejected. And I think that's kind of what taught me how to bring yourself back up after falling down, because having been rejected by an industry that I really wanted to get into taught me that even though modeling back in the day, you had to be a certain height, you had to be a certain body structure, everything is evolving, just like our society, and same with modeling. And I just decided to take a different perspective on it, and I started scouting my own photographers and taking my own photos, and started building my own portfolio without the help of an agency and without needing to go to castings. And then I started getting into social media, where I realized that I could use that as a little grid of little squares where I could showcase my pictures and my work, and use it as a place where I would get positive feedback. And it was always my friends when I first started just saying, "Oh, Kat, you're so beautiful." But I think that's kind of brought me back to life after having been rejected so much. And then I got into brand ambassador work, which is where I worked with a lot of other girls, going to events where we had to dress up. And again, similar to modeling, everyone had to have, or everyone was perceived to have, a certain body type, a certain look, but that was not at all the case. And I think that's what really changed my idea of the modeling per se industry, even though I think it's not even a modeling industry now. It's just, in general, it's just an industry where you can showcase what you love and what you do. But being a brand ambassador and working with girls with all sorts of heights and all sorts of sizes and all types of personalities, I think that made me feel like I was still part of something where I could model, I guess you could say, because we were part of events and we got to dress up and got to take pictures and kind of be surrounded by that environment. But I didn't feel like I was under the pressures of like being denied because I wasn't tall enough or couldn't walk the catwalk as well as somebody else. A lot of girls grow up wanting to become models. And I think it's really important to remind yourself that being a model doesn't mean you have to be 6 foot tall and be super skinny and be able to walk a catwalk and, I don't know, have a certain type of hair color, eye color, face structure, whatever it may be. There are so many ways to do anything, including modeling nowadays. You just have to think outside the box, and putting yourself outside that box and just finding new ways, kind of like I did with finding brand ambassador jobs or getting into social media. That's kind of brought me back to modeling. I feel like I still am part of the industry and still am able to do what I love without having to feel like I'm an outsider. Okay, when it comes to spreading body positivity, I think it's important to put yourself in the shoes of your younger self. How did social media affect you when you first got it? Of course, when I first got Instagram, filters were barely a thing. I think there were 5 filters and you had to take the photo on Instagram. So being able to follow the right people who are able to show off their true selves, their personality, and the good and the bad through stories or through any other platform that they have that they use, I think that's a good way to spread body positivity. And I think it's important to keep doing so because the stigma around the industry is going to keep growing if we don't do that. If it's just all perfect and all fairy tale like, I think it's important to use all your platforms to show the behind the scenes of what actually goes into the industry. So, and I think that'll also change people's perspective of what the industry is like. Being able to put a sense of realism towards it will enhance other people's perspective of what it is like to be in social media as well. In grade 12, I did move to Geneva in Switzerland, but one thing I do remember really prominently is being scared to take out my phone on the train or the bus on the way to school because I thought that someone would try to steal it from me. And I know I had a lot of fear kind of going into it because a lot of people would warn me that there's a lot of pickpocketers, or I would always have the sense that somebody's following me. And I think that's not normal because having been a young girl, I would go to school, I'd finish school at 4 or 5 p.m. and I'd feel like I'd have to get home right away because if I waited until it was dark to get home, I was terrified of going home. I've become so much more confident since then. I moved back to Toronto the following year to start university, and I wasn't on my own. I was here with my family. Even last year we went to Southeast Asia and we were in Bali, and I've heard so many amazing things about Bali, but we were traveling. There were 5 girls. There was my mom, my sister, and our family friend and her daughter, and we were traveling and we actually got attacked, which is a crazy story because we were just shopping down the streets, and I remember being in a store and one of the store owners were so crazy. We still don't know what exactly like the story behind it is, but he just decided to lock us in the store and then chased us down the street, and we just felt so vulnerable and so insecure about being on our own. And I think that is kind of still a thing that it's going to be prominent, especially on that side of the world, and it's getting better here in North America. But I think anywhere you go, you need to remember that as much as we want it to be an equal space and as much as we want women to feel equal to men, in a lot of countries, it's still very undervalued if you're traveling on your own as a woman. It's like literally like a few weeks ago when I was visiting my mom, we had to call the police because we thought like somebody was like watching the house or whatever. And I remember when the police came, the first question they asked us was, is there a man in the house? And we were like, no, like it's just my mom, my sister, and I. And they were like there should be a man in the house. And that concept is like, I don't know, it's like, you know, yeah. I don't know if that's something we can change immediately. It starts within us, just like anything. I have a lot of inspiration that I've gathered over the years, but I think the 2 kind of people who have inspired me more than anyone are Emma Watson and Karlie Kloss. Having grown up watching fashion television and wanting to be a model, I used to watch all of the fashion shows, including the Victoria's Secret fashion shows, and I specifically really liked Karlie Kloss because I found her to be very empowering. She was really young when she walked the fashion show, but she gave up, or she didn't give up. She moved, she expanded her modeling career beyond just the runway and opened up a portal or a program for girls to pursue STEM subjects in STEM from a young age. And I think that's really cool because I was growing up an athlete. I wanted to be a model. I wanted to get a good education. I wanted so many things going for me. So seeing someone who also saw like the benefits of being a well-rounded, brought up person just kind of inspired me.
What is one last message you want to leave the audience with? Anything.
Oh, this is hard. I'm like, okay, wait, I don't know. What's that? Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken, is one of my favorite quotes. And I think it's really easy to get carried away with social media nowadays of wanting to be somebody else, aspiring to be somebody else, doing something else. Stay true to who you are, and you'll always find your way.